Hi, this is Elliot from Ordinate, and I'll be talking to you today about clock status monitoring in Dante Controller version 3.5. Another powerful new feature in version 3.5 is active clock status monitoring. Dante Controller performs passive clock status monitoring all the time, which means that it monitors all device clocks on the network to make sure they are synced with the network clock master. If any device clock loses sync, Dante Controller displays a red LED icon in the status bar. Yes, this is a new icon, and it logs the event in the event log. Just click the icon to bring up the clock events log. Active clock status monitoring, however, which is off by default, means that you'll get a notification if a device clock is showing signs that it might be about to lose sync with the clock master. There are a number of reasons why a device clock might lose sync with the master, such as EE or energy efficient Ethernet, which can interfere with Dante clocking, incorrectly configured switches, 100 megabit links where you should really be using gigabit, or a problematic external word clock acting as clock master, basically a word clock on an external device that doesn't do what it says on the tin. When clock status monitoring is switched on, which you do using this button here, if Dante Controller detects a device that may be about to lose sync, it will show an orange LED icon in the status bar here. As we saw before, if you click the icon, you can go straight to the clock status monitor and see what's going on. The clock status data is displayed as a histogram, like the latency monitoring data, which we talk about in another video. I've picked a well-behaved clock to start off with so you can see what a good clock status histogram looks like. The histogram shows clock offset along the x-axis. The clock offset is the amount by which the device clock is being adjusted by the device to stay in sync with the network master. This will vary between clocks. The y-axis shows the number of measurements taken at that offset value on a logarithmic scale. Measurements are taken roughly once per second. So the histogram effectively shows how much work the clock is doing to stay in sync with the network master. The center of the x-axis shows 0 offset, so seeing all your measurements around there indicates that the clock is not being adjusted very much by the device to stay in sync with the network master. As you can see from this histogram, all our bars are green and in the center, which means that the clock is nice and stable and it's finding it easy to stay in sync with the network master. If we look at this clock, we see a different story. We've deliberately created a situation to show an example of a bad clock status histogram. But you might see this sort of histogram if you had energy efficient Ethernet on the network, or if the device was slave to a badly behaved external clock, or if one of your network links was overloaded. This pattern of data indicates that the device clock is working hard to stay in sync, and any number of events on the network could push it over the edge, in which case it would lose sync entirely. Dante Controller would then mute the device, which is obviously something we want to avoid. The resolution for this sort of situation depends entirely on the specific cause. If you have energy efficient Ethernet on any switches, it should be deactivated, or those switches should be replaced with switches that don't use EE. If you're slaving to an external clock, you should consider using an alternative external clock or reconfigure the network so you can use a Dante clock as a network master. It may also be because you've got an overloaded network link, for example a 100 megabit link where you should really be using a gigabit link, which means you'll need to upgrade the switch or configure things so you're not overloading any network links. Check out the Dante FAQs for more information about clocking. The link is in the video description below.